Hi, I'm Linda Van Hart, Visual Arts Coordinator for Common Ground on the Hill. Welcome to our Thursday night gallery talk. We are featuring digital and photographic techniques by our master instructors and photographers, Sasha Lane and Phil Grout. We have a lot of comparisons to do with these two. Let me start you off with the comparison that Sasha's brand new to us. She's been to Common Ground before, but this is her first year teaching with us. Phil Grout has been teaching with us for years, and we had to at first expand from 1 to 2 weeks and then from 2 to 3 weeks because his course fills so fast. The two of them have been active in this media. It is a media that many people feel comfortable with, and many people would call themselves photographers because they take pictures on their cell phone and they feel good about it. Sasha and Phil are working with lots of people who say they're photographers as a hobby and helping them to really become better photographers through uh, using a variety of techniques with their cameras, uh, through working with artistic composition, editing content, some features that many people who use their cell phones might not know are free and available to them. So you're going to get a lot of education about how to become a better photographer just in this gallery talk tonight. What we're going to do first is introduce you to our two artists. Uh, they're going to talk a little bit about themselves, their background, how they fell in love with photography, how long they've been practitioners, their favorite cameras, and they will show you a brief portfolio of their work, and they may use that educationally to talk to you a little bit about composition, lighting, and things that are so important in the art of photography. Once each of them has presented, we'll come back together as a trio and talk about some issues so important in the media of photography today. So let's begin with Sasha. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Sasha, and tell us where you're from, how you fell in love with photography.
Am I unmuted now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I was born in Czechoslovakia. It was Czechoslovakia at the time, and now it's Slovak Republic. That's also where I grew up. I was introduced to photography by my dad. My dad had this little Russian film camera, and when I was 15, he let me use it, and that was my um, first attempt to experiment with light. After that, photography has gotten very automated, and I went through a series of little pocket cameras until my kids were born, and that's when I realized that um, it's not enough. That there were so many moments that I wanted to capture right there, and I wanted to capture them a certain way. I wanted to capture them the way I saw them. So I decided to buy a real proper DSLR, and that began a brand new journey for me. Um, my interest in photography at that point exploded. While even prior to that, I went through life seeing moments where I thought, oh my goodness, that would be a great photo. Now I actually had the ability to actually capture the photo. Um, then, as I went along, I studied more and more techniques. I studied Photoshop, I studied Lightroom until I came to the point when my friends were interested in my work, and I decided that I was going to share the gift with my friends. And eventually, my hobby turned into a profession. So that has been my journey.
Do you do events? Do you photograph events?
I do not photograph events. I am interested in photographing people. I like the subject of human face. For me, all human faces and skin tones, skin colors, wrinkles, expressions are extremely fascinating. And I try to capture the spirit of every human being that I photograph. So, not just the face, but I try to get to know them, who they are, and then photograph their personality, um, and who they are on the inside.
So you're a storyteller.
I am a storyteller. I um, I enjoy seeing people in their element. I see them blossom into into who they are in their jobs, in their roles in life, and that's what I'm interested in capturing with every single one, especially with my kids because they're closest to me, right?
Let's see some of your work.
Awesome. So let me share my screen really quick. This is a photograph of my older daughter. What I try to show here is she is very creative, very inquisitive, and very adventurous. We were visiting family, and she put on this hat. There was a lamp right next to her, and it cast this beautiful light coming up towards the hat and her face and making this geometric shape. So I decided to capture that moment. In my mind, this captures who she is um, and how I love her. In the next photograph is my younger daughter. This was from when I was shopping for a new pair of eyeglasses. I brought them home, and my kids inherently started trying them on because they thought it was fun. This picture exemplifies a developmental stage in little children where they are into role playing. You can see her nails being somewhat painted, and she's wearing this fairy outfit. And she also had to put on my eyeglasses to try them on. She is photographed in her environment. You see a colorful playroom behind her, which is not exactly tidy, and that's how kids are. When I see this photo, I remember her little toddler years, and they will stay with me forever.
It looks like that you have blurred or somewhat muted the background in order for her to stand out.
Right. This is purposeful, and it is an element of my style. I enjoy blurring my backgrounds, although sometimes it gets tricky to make sure that your subject actually stays in focus. And it is because I still wanted to make sure that the story of who she was and what environment she was in, I still wanted to maintain that. But at the same time, I wanted to make sure that the focus stays on her eyes and the eyeglasses and her posture.
What technique did you use to mute the background?
Not really much that would be too specific. There is a style of photographing that's called wide open. And it basically means that you photograph your subject with a wide open aperture. It's also referred to as shallow depth of field. So when your depth of field is very shallow going this way, it photographs the subject while everything else, front and back, basically stays, as you called it, muted or blurred. And as far as her being a little darker than the background, it is simply because of where she was sitting. Where she was sitting, the light from the left side was a little muted because there was a door coming in. There was a door on that side, so she's a little darker. And then in the room behind her, there are three large windows that illuminate the room. So inherently, the room is a little lighter, and she's a little more pronounced. Can I go to the next one?
Sure.
This photograph is also of my younger daughter. It is a little more dynamic photograph. It captures who she is. She's very spunky and happy. Every year she has this tradition that she wants to jump into leaves. She is born in fall, and jumping in leaves is her sort of birthday activity. So every fall we pile up the leaves, and then she jumps in, and I'm required to photograph her, and I joyfully do it. This photograph just captures the free happiness of little kids, the lack of inhibition, the joy of just simple pile of leaves in fall. Recently, so both of my kids are swimmers, and recently I got into underwater photography. I saw some examples of it from other photographers, and I felt fascinated by how the movement in water can create different textures from the bubbles and the backgrounds, and you can split the picture between, the dry area and the wet area, and the water gives a picture just so much depth. Suddenly, sometimes you kind of feel like you're almost like walking into the picture. So I have a series of photographs made in water. They're not necessarily a coherent series. They're in many different backgrounds. So there are some different styles, but this is one of them. This is taken in our neighborhood pool during sunset, and I felt like my daughter was being so beautiful, just kicking in the water and her hair flowing back. At the same time, I felt that it was interesting how there are basically two colors in the photograph. There's that red, which is up in the sky, then the blue of the water, the red of the hair, and she has also some red pattern in the swimsuit. I don't know if you can see it. And then at the bottom, it transitions from blue to red again. I thought it was an interesting situation, so I made sure to capture it. This one is a typical parenting moment. My family still lives in Europe, so I try to take my kids to visit my family. And with that, I try to make sure that we visit some places that are good for their education. This was in a museum where they had Rembrandt and all kinds of, masters hanging on the walls. And I was in this big effort to try to make sure that I teach my kids. Well, with this particular moment, it didn't work out, as you can see. I tried to capture the humor of it and just go with the flow. And looking back, this photograph always gives me smiles. Can I continue? The next photograph is of a lot more somber tone. This photograph is from a series. This particular photograph is named, it has a long name. It's called Serenade Before Dementors Come. I took the name a little bit from the Harry Potter series, where Dementors were the creatures that took away your soul. At the same time, It's a little bit of a play on words because my mother is suffering from dementia. This was the last time that I saw her play the piano before dementia took away the brain cells that connect music with her ability to play. Um, this originally was created as just one photo, and as sort of a last minute effort, I submitted it to a competition, and surprisingly to me, it ended up being awarded as the finalist of the Click Voice competition. Um, it eventually led to producing a whole series of photographs which document my mother's journey with dementia. And I was actually offered an opportunity to make a show uh, with these photographs at the Cary Art Center here in North Carolina. Uh, with the COVID situation right now, I'm not certain how what the timeline is going to be, but I'm hoping that it's going to happen eventually. This is the last photograph of my series. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Well, it's funny since we're dealing with contrasts within the media that you have all of them are family, but you have such youthful, jubilant photographs, and then very poignant one. Very poignant.
If I can say a few more words about this photograph. So dementia is a huge problem for the society. We have a generation of people who are aging, and we have a generation of people who are taking care of um, this aging generation. And there is a lot of sadness associated with one having the disease, but also seeing the person go and working, taking care of aging parents is really, really hard work, which eventually leads to not winning. Eventually, it leads to parting with a person. With the upcoming show, my plan is to create events that will validate the pain of the people who are going through this process. My hope is that as people will walk through the gallery and they see these photographs, they will relate to them through their own experience. There will be conversation amongst the family members. There will be connection. People will open up to one another. They will mourn together. And eventually, I hope that it will lead to their personal healing. So that is my goal with this. Right now, our society is going through so many other stages, and there is dialogue about so many other issues. Dementia right now at this particular moment is not necessarily discussed, but it is a problem that affects a lot of people, and eventually it affects their mental health, and it does affect the society in more ways than we realize.
So, Sasha, what are you doing with your students in your class?
With my students in my class, I am having a lot of fun. I started them out in a somewhat technical way. I taught them first how a digital SLR actually works on the inside, what is happening inside of it. We talked a little bit about lenses and how they function. We talked about the exposure triangle, and I gave them a framework of how photography works. And every day we are building more and more in layers of how artistic photography works. So we've been talking about foreground and background relationship and different contexts. And today we zeroed in on portrait photography. and on expressive portrait photography. I am very excited once I get to see their work from today, because their assignment tonight is to photograph a portrait, but not just a portrait. I gave them specific light conditions, so I'm making it hard for them too. And they are also going to come up with expressive and posed photographs. So today we also worked on posing, and we did some exercises. We had a lot of fun with it.
That sounds great. Thank you, Sasha. Let's
Thank
look
you.
at Phil Grout and Phil's photography, and then we will compare and contrast the two artists. Phil Grout's been a photojournalist for several decades, and he's had to take a bit of a vacation from that with the COVID. So he's turned somewhat into a Japanese landscaper and sculptor. Tonight he's going to talk to you about his photography.
Okay.
And you see behind Phil in his home a gallery of his work.
I'll get it in just a second. This all started 54 years ago. I found myself flunked out of college thinking I wanted to be a doctor, following dad's footsteps. But the dean said, why don't you try something else? So Vietnam was on my heels, and there were no bone spurs in those heels. So I enlisted in the Navy and told a big lie when I got to Great Lakes. The personnelman was talking about the need for public relations, reporters, blah, blah, blah. And I lied and told him I'd been a reporter for 2 years. And he dubbed me a journalist. And 2 months later, I was on the Gulf of Tonkin on my first news assignment interviewing the Secretary of the Navy. The rest is history. A lot of my career was with newspapers and magazines. I'm trying to, okay, just give me one moment here. There. Anyway, working in the States and Africa, Asia, Latin America, working with different publications and international relief groups. What I wanted to do here, as far as I'm concerned, the most important thing about this week is the students. And I had some incredible students. This praying mantis was shot by Michelle Netto, and it's a tiny, tiny praying mantis. And this, I told Liz Check, who shot this, perfect composition of her sheep. Tim Michael shot El Capitan in Yosemite, and it's one of the best. I think Ansel Adams would be very happy with this print. And I'm sorry that something is a little haywire and I can't get the image any bigger, but this is Michael Lyons on a trip through Iceland in an incredible rainbow with some more sheep. I told Joanne Bost, who's teaching and showing Common Ground, I said, Georgia O'Keeffe would be very, very happy with this image of a fading lily. I think it's a tiger lily. Told her to blow it up, frame it, and hang it. This is pastoral scene by Kim Rip Diggs. They're working with smartphones. Everybody has a smartphone. They're a marvelous tool. I shoot more with my smartphone. It's always on my purse. It's a storyteller. It's great for grab shots. And that, can you see the big print behind me of the woodland scene with the golden leaves? Can you see that? That was on my phone. That print is like 3 feet wide. Let's see, looking. Oh, this is Tim Michael's child looking. I think it's a nice moment. And this guy's a natural ham. And he is Michelle Netto's, or wait a minute, yeah. Michelle Netto. I really regret this. I can't get this thing any bigger, but it's a marvelous shot of some grapes and old wood. Katie Robertson Green. This abstract, this is another one that would look great blown way up. Michael Lyons. And I think this is Michael Lyons B also. Gina Masseri in her lilies. And gosh. Carrie Butler, Bee on the Thistle. Katie Robertson Green, heading home. Cows heading home. Michael Lyons and a black and white of some lilies. And Kim Diggs. I just love this shot. Josh Robertson Green, his just discovered his new calf behind him. That was our cover photo for the week. This is some of my work, and it's kind of a hodgepodge. I shoot all kinds of things: editorial, illustration, photojournalism. I've done street fairs selling prints. This is the early morning up in Hanover at Hanover Farms. I'm not going to talk about each one except for this one. This is Joe Schwartzbeck, right after he was named Outstanding Farmer of Maryland, and one of his Holstein cows came over and gave him a kiss as he was leaning up against the stanchion. That was a while ago. And this is my best buddy, Bo, at Boys and Girls Club. This is the print that's behind me, an ancient ginkgo tree. They usually drop their leaves in at night, drop them all at the same time. And it makes a beautiful golden carpet. This is an Iraqi vet with a Great Dane as a what do I want to say? A service dog that he's just received. I have a thing about ginkgos. It's a single ginkgo leaf. It's an ancient Japanese maple down in Birmingham. A bunch of dogs got rescued out of the floods last year down south, and they brought them north for adoptions, and they turned them loose in a yoga class in Towson. It was mayhem. It was fun mayhem. John and Irene Wolf. Waiting for their sack of rice. This was soon after the earthquake in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Title of are you guys able to hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm getting a message that my internet connection is a little unstable. Title of this is and it won a prize with the Maryland Delaware Press Association, or feature photo. She was the oldest cocoa farmer in a village in Ghana, West Africa, Afua Nyame, and I love these hands. This is this was probably fall of 1966. I sat on the ground in Sasebo, Japan, photographing these three old men sharing stories in their smoke, and it hit me that this is where I wanted to be for the rest of my life, behind the lens. Carol Niner, chicken farmer from Gamber. Looks like he just stepped out of the Crimea. Leo Entwistle was the Hoxie brothers' chief elephant caretaker. This is a elderly woman of the Akha people in northern Thailand with a great sense of humor. Mother and child heading river in Nicaragua in a bit of a rainstorm. I call it Madonna of the Rain. May Christinger, I see her every day. She's on my, whatever you call that first image in your cell phone. Mary Garrison is an old cowgirl at the 4-H fair. Couldn't resist hugging that Jersey calf. Lori Harrison. This is in Sudan, in a medical first aid station line. This is the day my wife ML learned how to row a boat. And it was one of the hardest negatives to print in my collection. Haircuttings. These are the Asiana, Margaret and BK Asiana in Ghana. They made the fish traps. Tony, Bicycle Tony. He had a beautiful tenor voice too. Graduation. It's another refugee camp in Sudan, mother and child. This guy, my wife, this guy plowed up all his wild mustard last year, and there is not one yellow flower on that hillside today. Young firefighter. Bo Grout, lover of wildflowers. Hey, Bo, this is you. Some ladies warming up for a dance competition down in Howard County. .4-H fair. Same competition, different group. This is a marvelous, it was in the basement of the Laurel Historical Society, and he did interpretive readings of various Poe literature. He was incredible. And a lot of you probably know Tom Sterner, sorry, Tom, in as installation of Big Fish, Little Fish up in Havre de Grace. Christine Savoy wanted to show me her special room, which had some special light. Down near Sagamore Farms. There's Joe. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Phil.
You're welcome.
Phil has transitioned from film to the digital world. Sasha, I don't know if you've had that experience. Let's get back to how can we share our screens?
I started out with film back when I was 15, but then transitioned to digital later on. And right now I'm actually starting to dabble back in film again. It seems like it is becoming a trend among those photographers who are interested in the true essence of how a photograph is created, to kind of look back and start using the old film technology. So I'm starting to get back into it.
Can we remove Phil's image from the screen so we can see the speaker?
Phil, you can stop sharing. There we go. At the top, you can just hit a red button that says stop sharing.
And then,
There we are. Okay. So
okay.
you actually worked with film in a real camera. Did you develop your own film or you sent it away to be developed?
My dad developed it in our bathroom. He used to do it himself. He would just shut the door, make it completely dark, and developed it in the developing liquid and everything else. I used to be amazed by that, and that's what captivated me. I just wanted to follow that.
It's magical. The darkroom is totally magic.
As part of the transition Phil was making from real film to the digital world, he called me one day. I think he had installed was it an 8-foot sink or something? What did you do, Phil, to do those large prints? You were pouring chemicals on them?
Can you see the big guy behind me?
Yes.
Okay, that's an original photoglyph that starts out from film and make a high contrast negative and then do this crazy mixture of different chemicals that evokes color from, I was working with 30 by 40 sheets of paper and
30 by 40-inch sheets of paper. That's huge.
yeah, tray processed.
But you can't get those chemicals anymore. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, Kodak stopped making them and they wouldn't give me the formulary. They thought I was going to put them out of business.
But you've gone from that size with real film and chemicals to being able to enlarge your cell phone photographs to the size we see behind you also.
Yeah, yeah. There is some software now. Topaz has called Gigapixel. Sue Bloom put me onto it. That extrapolates and allows gigantic enlargements and preserves the quality.
How do you get those printed?
You got to use Photoshop and save the image as a Photoshop PDF. And believe it or not, Staples has it down, and they do a marvelous job. And you can also get a nice print from Nation's Photo Lab down in Cockeysville.
Wow, I didn't know Staples printed that big.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you buy their photo paper?
Well, they have big sheets, and you don't buy their paper. They print it on their paper, and yeah.
You take your image in on a thumb drive and say you want it 30 by 40 inches?
Yep.
Wow, how much does that cost?
It's been a while. It's under $100.
I was getting 11 by 17 printed on hot press watercolor paper, which is relatively smooth, but it's nice and heavy. And they can do that for me at the college print shop for 50 cents.
Wow.
But they're down now. I've got to call and see if I can get some things printed there again. That was pretty convenient. I'm going to have to try Staples out. Sasha, where do you get yours printed?
My lab is called Simply Color Lab. I submit my photographs to them online and then I get them by mail.
What's the normal size that you get printed?
I tend to think in 5x7s for my albums. And then when I want to get a print for my wall, it usually ends up being 8x10 or 11x16, about that size. I haven't tried to go into the poster size photographs yet, but it is something that I would like to actually consider. Right now, where I am, this is my brand new studio that I just finished actually making just this spring, which is why it kind of looks kind of bare. Um, and as you see, I have this giant wall over here. I'm planning to fill that with some nice size big prints. So I'm excited about that opportunity. Anytime you get wall space, it's exciting, right?
Yeah. Do you sell your work?
I right now the way I sell is when my clients hire me to photograph them either for professional headshots or for family photographs. Um, Sometimes senior photographs for high schoolers, stuff like that. So the way my structure is set up is I photograph my clients and then they can buy either all of my work or they can buy individual prints from me.
Have you thought about expanding into like wedding events or school photographs or anything like that?
I have considered school photographs. Um, the way school photographs are set up right now, I am not sure that I have the sort of the personal bandwidth to be able to fulfill the kind of demand that they would be asking for. As far as events, I have done some events, but it is not something that is intriguing to me right now at this point in time. I will see. Who knows? Maybe at some point the muse will strike and I will go into it. But at this point, I haven't really been moved by it personally.
But you are having an upcoming show, so perhaps that will open more gallery opportunities to show collections of your work.
That is more the area that I would like to move to, showing a problem maybe that the rest of the people in society can relate to and heal. If I get another opportunity of another subject, then absolutely that's something that I would like to pursue.
Do you have a website?
I do, yes. I have a website.
Is it Sasha Lane? What is your website?
My website is called Alexandra Lane Photography. Alexandra is my actual legal name. So that is what I use for my brand name. It is Alexandra Lane Photography, one word.com. I don't post that many photographs on my website itself. It contains maybe around 10 photographs that exemplify work that my clients can expect from me should they hire me. And then the rest of my work, my clients receive directly.
Well, Phil, you have a standing invitation to be part of Off Track Art, and you've been in and out of there several times. That's a local gallery, keeping art at the heart of downtown Westminster. Do you have any upcoming shows that we could look forward to?
Not yet. I tell you, I've been temporarily unemployed since this big guy hit in early March. So I've spent the duration of this pandemic beefing up the Japanese garden. And I'm not really thinking about shows. I would like to, I dance around this. I would like to do another book to describe this journey.
You've done several books in the past. One of them was was it a Brethren Center sponsored trip and book?
Yeah, it was into Nicaragua after Hurricane Joan hit the Atlantic coast of Nicaragua. I went in there and lived for a couple of months in a tent and did some documentary work and did a book, uh, Seeds of Hope. Uh, that was in the early 90s. And also a book in in Ghana, West Africa, working with cocoa farmers, uh, living in a small village of cocoa farmers. And that Harvest of Hope.
I think I own both of them.
Yeah.
Well, what tips do you have to the budding photographer who thinks of themselves as a photographer? When they think of themselves as a creative person, they feel more comfortable thinking of themselves as a photographer than someone who draws, paints, or sculpts because they can take pictures with their phone. Do you have any tips for the hobbyist?
Keep up that attitude. Really, the smartphone is a marvelous tool. Tasha, do you work with a smartphone?
I am starting to work with it a little more, and I couldn't agree with you more. Especially as smartphones are evolving,
Yeah.
they are really useful tools. And some professional photographers are starting to use smartphones actually, especially when they travel a lot. So smartphones are really getting up there, and they are starting to kind of catch up to the capabilities of regular cameras. I agree.
Before this pandemic hit, I was working with the Baltimore Sun in their various weekly newspapers, and every once in a while I pull out the smartphone. It There are situations where it can shoot things I can't get down like I used to at 75, and the smartphone can get down there for me. I can't lay on my stomach anymore. I used to do that a lot. Um, but yeah, it's a great tool, and I'm so excited about these students this week, and I think they're discovering what a special tool it is. I'm really pleased with what they've come up with.
I agree. I also want to say that a DSLR definitely offers more flexibility. And if you are somebody who is fascinated by how a photograph actually is created, then I would say that a DSLR is the way to go. But a cell phone can be just as good of a tool. As far as giving any advice to enthusiastic photographers, I agree. Keep up the attitude, study more, learn, grow, compare your work, look at other people's work. There is so much out there. Just keep up the attitude and grow.
Well, I think one of the first languages that people learn to read, even before letters and reading, is the image. And most of the first images that youngsters see are photographs. So as we come into the 21st century, we're bombarded with the artwork that people have done with whatever camera of their choice. And considering that the media is 150 years old, it's remarkable that it's taken over our lives. Every day, you can't even count the number of photographic images that come your way. There's just a barrage of them. We take it for granted. We live in such a visual world with all the different forms of communication, photography, composition, lighting, all of that we take for granted. And it takes a class like the ones that you are teaching to help us break that down a little bit and understand exactly what we're looking at so that we can read better, so that we can read and comprehend what we're seeing discriminate between the ordinary and the extraordinary. And I'm very, very thankful for the instruction that you're giving our students. And Phil always has returned students. We have to beat him off with a stick so new people get to work with him. And I'm sure the same thing's going to be true with you, Sasha. I hope you can return to teach with us next year.
I would love to.
Expand your student base and their knowledge of this art form that we all love. This is the conclusion of our visual art talks for the week. Normally on Friday, we would have a wonderful student art show. So please encourage your students. We're encouraging everyone who's taking classes to photograph their best work, send their images to Maria Wong. Maria is going to assemble the student art show for all 3 weeks. And at the conclusion of Common Ground, that will be mounted on our YouTube site, our Facebook site, so that you can enjoy the products of these creative 3 weeks for the rest of the summer. Since we can't do it in person as we always do, it's one of the most exciting nights of Common Ground when everybody shares their work and brings their families to see what they've done in a mere 15 hours of work in 1 week. You're changing people's lives and the perception of the world in which we live. We will return with gallery talks at 6:30 on Monday night next week with our artists from week 2. And again, the next week, Monday through Thursday, with our artists from week 3. So please make a habit of joining us every evening, 6:30 to 7:30, to partake in the wisdom and the talent and the skill that our instructors are sharing with their students. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you very much, Sasha. Thank you, Phil, for a wonderful presentation. Enjoy the concert tonight. I hear it's just incredible.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Linda.
See you there. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.